Hey guys, this is a follow-up from my previous video. I was talking about startups, okay, and why startups fail. So I want to carry on from that conversation. Why does your favorite startup company, favorite brand, favorite tech, favorite fintech, why they close, right? Why do they go bankrupt usually after 1 or 2 years after getting significant investment from VCs? Yeah. Why do they close? So I want to talk about this. And it's a topic that's very close to me, clearly, because again, I have my own startups, we do payment rings. So we allow users tap to pay, right? So you tap to pay with your ring or bracelet. This is not it's a payment bracelet. All it does is tap to pay. And it's for businesses as well. So as a business, you can also tap to receive money. So you don't need your funky POS terminal anymore because you have this. Just wear this around. No battery needed, just tap and you receive your money. So we've launched in about 55 countries and we're growing rapidly with no marketing other than this. So if you're seeing this, this is me doing marketing. Yeah. And everything we make goes back to the product. So we've got payment rings, AI rings. So this is an AI ring, by the way. It's a health ring. And also you can talk to it. So you see a speaker here. You can talk to it and say, hey, please send £10 to Mike. Done. Okay. I hope it didn't. Check my phone. Oh yeah. So it hasn't. So that's another point as well. It looks at the voice and it allows you have to confirm on the ring. Otherwise it's gonna go. So you confirm on the ring, you talk, you confirm on the ring, and then the payment goes. We're doing something here with a few government as well, doing some piloting. These things take months. If you're working with governments or companies or big banks, it takes months. But we hope to roll this out shortly, but people are already ordering it. 55 countries, and we're growing through word of mouth. If you're watching this, that's it. Look how many videos this takes, right? It's not a lot. It's about 5, 6, sometimes 1,000 people watching it. But what it does is it allows us get real customers with no marketing, and we grow organically. I emphasize those words because that's the answer, right? Of why your favorite brand closes down and just dies. Okay. Here's some stats. 75% of people who receive money from VCs. So VCs are people invest in VCs. I call them vultures, but you can call them venture capitalists. So what they do is they invest money, often significant sums of money, into startup companies. So what will happen is you go in and they invest about 1 million or 2 million in you, and then that's it. And then hopefully you can use that money to grow your product. But obviously, everybody, if you've watched my video long enough, you know nothing in this life is free. There's a catch. So if they give you that money as a founder, you are happy with it because at last you've got the money you need. But here's the point, you have to pay back. So that's where the problem comes in. And that's why people close. They close because they can't pay back. We can come up with the funkiest name possible, right? And people always come up with it. So I can tell you right now, I mean, I worked in banking for 20 years. I went so far in banking that despite my lovely look, again, and I worked in Ireland. Ireland, if anyone knows Ireland, was not, still is not, but it wasn't one of the most diverse places. I worked in Ireland. You can check my CV actually on this one on LinkedIn. But I worked in Ireland in the IFSC back then in investment banking, where I think I would have been, maybe it was me and 5 more people who were the only black people ever, like literally there, right? So you'd had to work fast and prove yourself. Yeah, you have to prove yourself. Like it wasn't like you just show up there and just walk, right? Which is what people are starting to miss these days, especially with startups and just getting cash for free. So in banking in Ireland, I had to prove myself. Like literally, it's not about being racist or anything. It was just the truth, which is, hey, you've come in. There are people from the country that want to take that job. They've applied. There are 1,000 people to one on one job, right? What do you do? How do you prove yourself? How do you stand out? And you're from Nigeria. Good luck. Black as well. I was lucky because I had the name Patrick. So sometimes I go in and my name is Patrick. People go in and they're like, okay. But here's a good thing on Ireland, right? Which is true in banking as well. Generally in banking, there's racism, or you could say there's color, there's some sort of bias, but you can prove yourself. So when I showed up there, I had to prove myself on the interview. And then when you go into the interview, you have to prove yourself at work. So there's a layer that you go, which again, I can talk about a separate video on this one as well. But it's the same thing, right? Which is very different from other industries. But in banking, I can tell you, no matter where you're from, there's always going to be someone from a different country or someone that wants to understand you or really you to sell to that group or that clientele, which is, that came to my advantage then when I joined banking in Ireland, being like about one in five black people that showed up into the IFSC, which IFSC was brand new. Like I kid you, those buildings were still new. Now it's old now. I went there last time. I was very proud actually. There were a lot of black people hanging around, a lot of Chinese, Asians. Hardly when they were building that place was there any. I think there was only Bank of Ireland, Bank of New York. There was one trading firm, I think Forgotten what that firm was called. Just very few. And Norwich Union was there as well. So just a few, and they were just growing. Dockland was growing then. I say all that to say, hey, that you have to struggle in life. Yeah. Which is the case. So my point, I can tell you, 20 years worked in banking, and then from there, then I started this, right? And then I moved to Switzerland. Switzerland, same thing. If anyone's been to Switzerland, you can tell how diverse it is. Right? But you have to prove yourself. So you go in there, you have to prove yourself that you know what you're talking about. Okay, they've given you an opportunity. Believe it or not, believe it or not, when you go in there, you're Chinese, right? You're judged on being Chinese. But the next Chinese person to come through the door, they judge you based on that. So they go and they're like, there's a Chinese guy that's walking here that's doing very well. There you go. So now you've paved the way for others. So that was the same with me as well in banking in Switzerland. I joined, I think it was 2015. There were not a lot of black guys, I can tell you. I worked at Credit Suisse then. There were not a lot of black guys in Credit Suisse. If I'm going to take glory that I did so well that they brought in Tijan, the first black CEO, because of me. Thank me later. But that's the case, right? If you're a different race and you come in and you work in a team of predominantly maybe whites or predominantly Chinese, then you're judged. And if you do very well, you bring more people in. That's one thing we don't talk about a lot, right? Is a positive side of being a different race, right? Is that you pave the way for others, whether I like it or not. Same thing as well with our ring. So we've launched, I left banking and I launched this as well. Again, I left and I thought I got everything. I got my cash together, saved up for years, about a year for this, a year and a half. And then again, I worked, I was fairly high in banking, enough to have enough money. But I used to see a lot of deals come through such that I was able to see and say, hey, I can do my own thing here. And I'm sure I'll get investment. I left and zero investment. If I check it out, like till now, we see our family and friends, but the investments you see online are not, no, I'm not going to say they are not true investments, but there's so much catch and so much negativity and so much clause, I'll call it chains around it, that it punishes founders. That's what I want to talk about, right? So I've gone through my history just to explain that. One, that, obviously the minority side of things. Number two, the experience of banking, right? You have to be experienced in your topic. So I'm experienced in banking so that when I started this fintech, which is payments with banking, again, there's a bit of fashion here, right? Again, I love my fashion, but in truth, you're more on the banking side. And there are a lot of startups that have tried to create this, by the way, and failed, right? We're the only ones who've lasted for just 1 year. But 1 year, we're in 55 countries and we're growing, yeah? But there's a reason I haven't taken 5 million, 10 million from people. I'll talk about that now, right? Because as a founder, you go and you see that cash and you're happy to see the money. And you're like, oh my goodness, I've got investment of 2 million, right? But if you look at it, there's a reason why 75% of founders that have taken money from VCs have failed. And the VCs themselves can't even return the money back to investors. So they need to now make the 25% that pass. They better make up for the number of failure. And that's the problem we have. That's why if you go into invest money, that's what you face already. That there's so much failure, right? In business, there's failure to start with, right? And there's very few success. But the VCs themselves that are experts, right, have so much failures that when they have a success, they pound the success for as much money as possible. And that's why your favorite founder, your favorite, I don't know, your fintech, any cool fintech that you've heard of in the past, that's why they go downhill, right? In fact, I remember walking to a founding pro. I think one of the guys to fund our ring. So these rings we fund it through banks, right? I work with various banks across the world. We have about 350 banks, which is a lot that we work with. But I remember the first few months I used to go out to talk to banks, right? And I was still working in banking myself. So when I had time during lunch, weekends, I go in and I put a slide together and I go in and I present to banks. But the first question one of the VCs said to me was, how much have you raised? Here's the point. If you're a young founder and you don't know what to answer, you're going to take that badly. You're going to take that as a rejection and leave, okay? But to me, I read that and I knew straight away the problem, right? And that's why I knew there was a problem, because instead of telling me product is nice, they said, well, you need to have raised money to come to us. You need to have raised 2 million. So if you think about that as a founder, that means you need to go out and try and raise money. Whether the product is good or not, you have to raise money and then come to them and they give you more money. But the guys that you raised 2 million from, you have to pay them back. So what that means then is your product better make enough money. So it's already becoming expensive. If you're making this, imagine making this for £50, and then you go to $50, let's make it simple, $50. Then you go into a bank, and then the bank gives you 2 million. A VC or an angel gives you 2 million. When they give you 2 million, they need the money back. So that means the $50 you make, you have to increase the price to at least 100 to make the 2 million back, because they want to get paid in 2 to 3 years. They don't want 2 million back. They want 2 million plus interest, right? And equity to continue to have a say in the company. So they can turn around and say to you, the $100 is too cheap on the make it 200. You see what I mean? Which is crazy. So that means you've already, like, you've taken the price from 50 that you wanted to 200. Bracelet, same thing. That could go up as well. So they can turn around and say, this is for payments. Or we are the only ones doing it in the world. Okay, take it up. Because you've taken their money, you don't have a choice. You have to take up the price. Otherwise, they close you down. How are they going to close you down? They ask for their money immediately. If they ask for their money immediately, you're stuck because you have to pay them. And then they close down the company, they take whatever is left, and they give it to someone else to try and come up with an idea. And guess what usually happens? That person fails, and it fails, and it fails, and it fails because you know the product. It's your passion. A lot of founders, right? They're very passionate about the product. Well, you're passionate about the product, and guess what? Stick to it. Otherwise, you go out and get that money that falls to pieces. And this is exactly why it falls. So again, this is an inside information. People talk about it a lot and say, oh, because I mean, I love these stupid phrases. I call it silly because it just don't make sense. Oh, because you didn't get product market fit, that's why. Or because there wasn't much demand for the product, that's why. Guys, there's nothing like that. Like I hate jargons. Like I went so far in banking, I can tell you, because there's no jargons with me. If I come in and I talk to my client, I tell them the truth. That was it. I say, hey, this is the truth. That's it. Same thing as well. If I go out and I want to I go for an interview, I talk straight away, straight to the point. Well, and that's it. There's no jargons with me. I have to present. When I present black. I mean, I'm presenting now. There's been no jargons in this conversation. But if another founder was here or a banker was here, you can barely understand what they're saying because they're just going for keywords, which sometimes they don't understand. So for me, when I hear things like, oh, what's your IRR, or what's your MBV, or what's your customer acquisition cost, things like that, I find it like the biggest word for nothing. I'll tell you why. Before the founder sits in front of you, that founder knows what they're doing. You might think they don't know, right? But what you're doing is you're taking the founder from the small vision they had to up here. But there's a huge gap in between. So I blame the VCs here, not the founders. Because you come up with these things, and I see a lot of founders, right? By the way, I mentor founders because I've done this, right, from my own money and for free. I mentor founders, and it's clear, right, that they don't know what they're talking about, or they're being forced to learn. And again, most of these guys are MBAs, right? They've gone on to degrees, they've worked in banking all their lives. They try and force founders to get into their space. But a founder is a founder. A founder just come up with this idea. That's all they know. So if I come up with this idea, I know there's a demand for this product. Same thing as well. Let's talk something simple. If you have a startup of a pizza store, pizzeria, right? If you start a pizzeria, you know the area, you've come up with the idea, and you think it's a cool idea, okay? But where the problem comes is if you try and make it global. If you say, hey, I want to make it to be like Domino's, right? But if you start off small and say, this is my idea, this is my village or my community I want to serve, and that's it. And if you do that, and you carry on persistently doing that. So most startup companies, I can tell you, 1 year, 2 years, they're closed. Why? Because there's no consistency. They don't want to be billionaires like that, right? So we started this, I can tell you, I was working on this for a year before we then launched. So at least 2 to 3 years now I've been on this. Most people would have stopped because they're not making a million yet. But to me, I mean, I remember when we started, I think for the first 3 months, we had one customer in Singapore. I was based in Europe. So the customer was single 8 hours difference. So I had to update every year, every hour, basically. Go and check customer is okay, do everything. Oh, then we had a second customer in Canada. So that means I was in Europe and we had someone in Singapore that was 8 hours ahead and then another person in Canada. The first thing anybody would do is like, that's not possible, and you close down the business. But if you want to do something, you do it. So in this case, I said, I'm going to cater to these guys. I love the idea. Guess where our next customer came in from? From Australia. So that was a different time zone plus one. So I had 3 customers. And we had them for 2 months before we then grew, and then US, and then from there we started. But my point is, if we didn't do that, right, you don't rank up, and customers can't find you because maybe your VC or anyone who's giving you money has said stick to the UK, which was the case. So I remember going into a bank. Another bank said to me, "Hey, we're going to invest here." They wanted to invest 150K with us. I remember exact amount, and I could have said yes. If I said yes, two cases was one, sponsor us so we can do the rings. They were going to give him an suggested price, which is very expensive, almost not sustainable, plus a monthly fee. Now, I've still not introduced a monthly fee on these things. So monthly fee, most will do it, right? They tell you, oh, the ring is free and they pay monthly, right? My point is theft, right? I don't like it. I don't like subscriptions. Subscription to me, I already paying off subscriptions for Netflix, for Prime, for Amazon, Deliveroo, all this. I'm like, I don't think I want people to pay subscription on a ring as well. So you pay for the ring and that's it. So, and that's what I did, right? But I didn't take that money because of that, right? Because if I'd done that, then you go down that route. And that's exactly what happens. The bank will tell you, stick to something and here's the price. So they said to me, stick to the UK. So that means customers that came to me, the initial customers that came from Singapore, from the UK, from Australia, I would have had to say no. Yeah. This is already becoming big, long-winded, but it's the truth, right? And someone needs to say these things on the inside from me. If you go back and read this, by the way, in a few months. But this is a good foundation story on what happened, right? And why we're here and why your favorite, let's call it your favorite startup closes. Just because the founders are very determined, they want to achieve a lot, but they're stuck with greedy corporate people. That's the summary. Very greedy corporate people. They all go bankrupt for that because they've taken this money in, they need to pay the VCs back, and the VCs need to have a say in what's happening. We all know about what they call Red Lobster. Red Lobster went down, right? Because of that, Red Lobster was doing very well. Then the private equity came in and then bought them. Now, as founders, you have to take the money because you're dying, right? You're like, oh yeah, okay, I'll take it. And when you take it, they come into your board or they come into the company and tell you what to do. They're not telling you actually, they're instructing you on what to do. Otherwise, they take their money. So they instruct you on what to do. And what happens then? It goes down.